When I first started thinking about this video and kind of met with the idea of my story, I had to think a little bit more about like why we're doing this and exactly what I want listeners, watchers to get from this video. Because I always think like with content production, it's about delivering some degree of value, rather than me sitting here and just talking about myself for a long period of time. I think it's important that people get something from it. And so for me, I thought back to like why I started YouTube, why I started content creation. And at the start of my journey, I knew one thing that was going to get me to where I wanted to be in coaching, in bodybuilding, and just even generally in life, the perception that people had of me. And I knew that the only way to get there was to be myself, to be authentic, and to basically document my journey in the most raw and honest way possible. And being honest with myself, I feel like over the last 5 years, I've been so absorbed in my business and delivering to the client base that I'm so now like lucky to have. And I'm in that kind of position where I've maybe moved further away from the AJ that I was when I started in terms of being that true, authentic, real life guy. And I've started to realize that it's actually still really important to keep people up to date with that. And with what's happening this year, coming up, 2025, I feel like this is honestly the perfect time to make a video like this where I kind of go a little bit through my background, my story, and for people that are now a part of the channel, for people that are a part of my process, they can understand me a little bit more, from day one. I think the best place to start is literally my upbringing. Looking back at my upbringing, I was very lucky. I had an incredible family life, very stable family life with my mom and dad. I grew up in a fantastic area down south where I think for me, some of the big like take homes from my upbringing was from the point of like starting school all the way through to leaving school, my parents were extremely supportive of like my ups and downs. So like I'd struggle with something and they'd be like, it's okay, find something you're stronger at. It would never be like, you're weak at this, you have to get better. Like my whole life, from like literally the moment I like I said, I started education and started struggling with stuff, it was always a case of, yeah, you can get better at that, but like play to your strengths. That's probably like a good theme of my upbringing is play to your strengths. And I was surrounded by a lot of people in my like cul-de-sac area where we always used to like play out at nights, which I think nowadays is probably like a thing that's gone, so we knock on people's houses, grab my friend, one of my best friends called Callum. We used to play football, basketball, ride bikes, whatever. And like there were a few things I was better than him at, but mostly he was way more athletic than me. And from that moment, like from like age probably like 6 or 7, maybe 8, I always wanted to try to catch him up. I had this pursuit of people that were probably, let's be honest, like he was one of those genetically endowed individuals that had abs all the time, that was good at sport and was always like picked for all the teams. And I wasn't that guy, I really wasn't that guy. And so I think having a person like him, a friend that not only was someone that was good at stuff, but was someone that I was almost chasing down, gave me that chaser mentality. And that's something that I think I carried a long way through like my entire life, is that chaser mentality, but also playing to my strengths. Yeah, found out I was super competitive at a young age. Definitely that was a big thing that I found out straight out of the gate. And like I said, had a supportive and sort of really backing myself kind of upbringing. So that was like day one kind of stuff at home. Education wise, I definitely had a more difficult time in education. I think I was someone that wasn't really like fitting into the crowds that I wanted to fit into. I wanted to be kind of one of the more popular guys in school. and also one of the more sporty guys in school. And I wasn't naturally either of those things. So I had, a good friendship network for sure, but I definitely wasn't one of the popular guys, and I was definitely a little bit more kind of kept to myself, a little bit more introverted. That was fine for me. I didn't really have, any huge struggles, but at the same time, I again had that strive to be one of those people, one of those guys, one of the people that kind of stood out, and was selected first for teams, was top of the class. So yeah, it was always a case of trying to strive to be better. After primary school, I went to school in Lewes, which was about an hour drive from my house, which was private education, and I was very lucky to get into private education as a result of a scholarship for motorsport. So they noticed that when I was at the back end of primary school, I was first getting into karting, and I was already doing pretty well, to the point where that side of education opened up a door to me, to have a very small locked-in community in school where you knew pretty much everyone from year 6, year 7 to year 12. It wasn't like a huge secondary school that was local. It was an hour away from home, so I had to wake up 6 a.m. every single morning to catch a bus at 7, because I was the furthest away from the school, collected on the bus, taken to the school. And the days were long as well. They were a little longer than normal secondary school. So it's 9 and you finished at 4, and I wouldn't get home until 6, half 6. So I think what that taught me is that I got exposed to what a difficult day looks like straight out of the gate, pretty much. And like I said, I was very, very lucky to be exposed to that environment, because that for me was also an environment where I was really lucky to learn well, and I'm not saying that I wouldn't have been if I'd have gone to a regular state school, but I think I definitely would have struggled more, because in primary school I remember definitely getting picked on more in big open groups. And I was kind of this kid that was, a little bit chubbier than other people, a little bit stocky. I also at that time was going for a really rough patch with my skin, and that was really affecting my mental health. So when I went to secondary school and I suddenly had this smaller group of people that I made some decent friends with, I felt like that gave me a real big surgence in confidence, partly because my skin also got a lot better during secondary school. Lower stress, and an exposure to what a hard day looks like, rather than just walking around to school, coming home, chilling, having a really short day. That kind of ties me in nicely to, alongside education at that point, I was getting into, of course, motorsport, which was my first kind of passion. This was mainly derived from my dad, because we used to sit down at the weekends, watch F1. And I then knew immediately when I was 8 or 9 years old, when I started karting, I knew that was something that I wanted to do. So everything about me now with bodybuilding, with business, was the same passion, but for motorsport, back then, from 8 until 15. 8 until 15 was everything I thought about, was motorsport. And it was how can I be better? How can I get an opportunity to move forwards? And I look back at that fondly, in the way that it again drove that competitive side of me and made me think outside of the box, because a lot of people say this in motorsport, but genuinely I didn't have a lot of money to go towards it. I didn't have a wealthy family. I didn't have loads of sponsorships. I didn't have that opportunity to progress just off my own back. I had to kind of search for it. So yeah, I remember when I was 13, 14 years old, sending out this email with a PDF that I made to try and gather some sponsorship. And I got a little bit, I got a tire sponsor, I got a fuel sponsor, I got people to pay for little things that then took the burden off me and my dad. I knew I had to do something to try and be better than other people. And that's when I, naturally through motorsport, you realize that there's gaps in your ability to perform on track. So like one of the gaps initially that I noticed was fitness. I noticed that I could be fitter, and there was also people that were fitter than me. So my objective was then to become the fittest, strongest guy on track at that stage. And that's literally when I started the gym, you know, because I knew that if I wanted to be the fittest guy on track, I'd start running more, I'd start cycling more, I'd make an old steering wheel I had, my dad loaded it up with bits of lead, and I'd just sit there turning it like, you know, obviously the F1 drivers now have like proper machinery linked up to like cable sacks and stuff, but like I would sit there with a lead steering wheel to try and build up forearm strength, neck strength, you know, anything that I can be better at. So like my limitation was not fitness, because instead of going out over the weekends where people would throw money at more practice days or an extra engine, I'd just train harder. I'd just find a gap which I can improve upon, that was maybe something that those guys weren't thinking about. That again, that's another theme of myself, is like finding gaps. So it's like, yes, play to your strengths and find gaps. When I piece these little things together, it's like starting to make me realize this is why I've become the person I've become, is because it's not because I had this all at 20 years old when I started my business properly. I didn't have this all suddenly like given to me. It was very much nurtured and like earned as a result of my time from literally like 6 years old onwards, I think. And that's probably a good take home for people watching this video, is that, you know, not that there's many 6-year-olds watching this video and thinking, oh yeah, I can change this, but it's what it is like, realize the person that you are now is probably a large part of like the last 5, 10, 15 years of your life. So it's never too late to change those years that are upcoming. So, you know, the next 5 years you could cultivate a version of yourself that is significantly improved on where you're at now. That was motorsport. For me, motorsport was quite successful. I sort of like best sort of achievements was like top 5 at a British level. And when I went to the European level, which I did a couple of times in Italy for a world championship, because basically the way that it worked is if you came within the top 5 in the UK, you'd go to the world championship level and you'd compete in Italy. The times that I went there, unfortunately I got hit with just I say bad luck. It was really, really bad luck. And I had good pace, comparable pace, but never could string together a world championship result, which was a shame, because it would have been nice to look back at that. But yeah, top 5 at sort of a British level against some really good guys that, you know, now, like 2 names that stand out to me is like Toby Sowery, who's now in IndyCar, Jake Hughes, who just finished his 2nd season in Formula E. These are 2 guys that like were my good friends, you know, that I raced with, and that I now still follow on their socials and things like that. And racing for me and motorsport for me is, as a lot of people still know now, like it's still definitely a huge passion of mine. You know, I'm lucky enough to have a little sim, a home that I'm able to kind of grasp a little bit of that fire that's still there, and build skill. And something that I found that actually, I was listening to an Elon Musk podcast the other day, and I realized that Elon said that the only thing that he can switch off to is video games. And I'm the same, because my mind is always thinking about what else can I do with my business, what else can I do, not so much now with bodybuilding, because I know with bodybuilding, I know I'm doing all the things I need to do. Maybe at the start of my bodybuilding career, I was thinking a lot about what can I do differently or better. And now I know I'm pretty much set with that. Like I'm stable mentally, but for me, it's with business. My mind's always thinking about what do I need to do differently, and playing sim is the only thing that gets me like not thinking about anything, because you can't. When you play a high focus thing like that, you can't think about anything else if you want to be good at it. So, you know, that's something that I do, you know, in my spare time, which during certain periods of the year I don't get any, and I haven't been on it in like 6-7 months. But when I do get time, half an hour at the end of the day, it's crazy good to just completely switch off. That was a huge aspect of my life, like I said, and you know, motorsport, what that taught me at a very young age is not just my competitiveness, because I'd already built a lot of that, but I think what it really built for me is the ability to tolerate high pressure environments. Because when you're like 12 years old and you're in a cart that can do 70 mile an hour, completely exposed, and you're racing against other people that want it just as bad as you, and you're racing grids of like 26, 27 carts in the wet, and there's not like, you just sit there on the grid waiting to go out, and it's going to be hard, and it's going to be, there's a risk element, and you see people crash and you see people hurt themselves, but you do it anyway. I think honestly, like, motorsport builds some pretty tough cookies, to be fair, because if you're 11 years old, 10 years old doing that, it's to me, bodybuilding, or the pressures of speaking at a seminar, or having a lift in the gym that's hard and challenging, is like, to me, I always compare it back to motorsport, and I think this is nothing compared to the feeling of fear that I had sometimes sitting on a grid, or pressure sitting on a grid, knowing that I had a really good qualifying and I'm like P2 in the championship or something, and I'm like on the front row against a guy that I really want to beat. That was pressure, because there's so many things that in those 15 laps you can't control. And I think that's also another thing that it taught me is what is and what isn't within my control. With bodybuilding and with business, there's a lot of things that are outside of your control, that if you stress about them all, you become this overwhelmed character that is just constantly worried. So it taught me to compartmentalize some of the things in my life that I don't need to worry about, and just focus on doing the do. That kind of closes the door on motorsport. I remember very vividly sitting in the car park of Sainsbury's, actually, because my first job was working at Sainsbury's. Sitting in the car park at Sainsbury's and saying to my dad, like, this weekend's like race will be the last one that we do, because I made the choice. I made the choice because I knew that financially, at that point, I believe it was kind of the first kind of recession that we had in the UK. And my dad worked in the food service industry, and I could feel that, as much as I didn't know the numbers. Like, my dad never really shared finances with me. I knew that we were looking for a new place to live. I knew that there was like pressures on the family financially, and I knew that with what I was getting from like Sainsbury's, which by the way was all going into motorsport, I knew that I can, withstand taking on board more of the financial aspect of the sport. And it was becoming a point where it was almost like making me more upset that I couldn't progress, because I saw a lot of my friends making moves into cars or single seaters, and I was like, if I see more of these people like go to this level and then just keep going, and I'm not going anywhere, I want to stop, and I want to stop on a good term, and move to something else where I can. At that age, I was still very, very young. I must have been like literally the earliest working age to have a job. So I knew that was the right point to change path. And already by that stage, I was very invested in training with weights for the motorsport side, and I knew that I had a passion for that. That is really where everything kind of turned towards bodybuilding. That exact moment there was like final race weekend, everything's towards bodybuilding. Within that year, so I think from that year of finishing motorsport, I went on this like onslaught of just building as much muscle as I possibly could. Got really heavy, got really fat, unnecessarily, and like drinking mass gainers on the till at Sainsbury's, and everyone telling me off because they stunk, and just forcing down food, doing all the usual bodybuilding things that you probably shouldn't do, but were really fun to do when I was young, and just building my foundations. Falling in love with the gym, that's what like those first few years were for me, is falling in love with the gym, having passion for what I do with lifting weights. And it's what I encourage to a lot of younger athletes, is that before you hop into a prep or whatever, you fall in love with the gym first. So for me, fell in love with the gym, and then I knew that I wanted to prep literally within a couple of years of coming away from motorsport, and that's what I ended up doing. So in 2014, I did my first ever contest prep as a teenager, and that opened up like a whole different kettle of worms for me, in terms of realizing that I loved that process so much. I loved sharing the process, which I did on the basics of social media at that point. It was basically just pictures on Instagram that you shared. You didn't really share videos or anything like that at that point. And I did my first show, and that first show, I was also lucky enough to get a placing. So I was like, I remember being like pretty ecstatic with getting a third place, which now in my head has been like third place. So that's not good enough. But, at that point I was just super happy to place at my first show, and most importantly, have fun with the process and know that I wanted to do this in whatever capacity I could do it, as a job, as a career. I literally knew that in that moment. Nothing else would convince me otherwise. So 2014, 2015, I competed. 2015 was the first year where I really started helping other people, getting a job at a semi-private studio PTing, and alongside that starting slow formation of my online coaching process. Because at that stage, online coaching 2014, 2015 was still a new thing. It was, people still didn't really know what it was. People still didn't really know the processes of it. Like a lot of coaches at this point had worked primarily just off either texting someone an update once a week, or emailing someone saying, here's your diet, off you go. It's very raw and basic. From what I could see in the landscape, I was starting to be one of the first people that was communicating by recording my screen and sending client updates, using Screencast-O-Matic, which is what everyone used at that point. There was no Loom. And I started building a good following from podcasts, from doing Teen Muscle Radio, which was basically all about teen bodybuilding. So a lot of my inquiries and my initial clients were teenagers, were juniors, and I was charging quite a low ticket price to try and build results. Because that's what I always tell people when it comes to business, like, people need that know, like, and trust. So I was trying to build know, like, and trust to build the business. At that point, at the same time, I think even in early 2015 and late 2014, so alongside doing a bit of PT, which I'm talking was very little, and building the online, which again was 4 or 5 clients, very few. I still had a part-time job in an estate agent in Brighton, and I remember absolutely hating that job so much, to the point where I was so unbelievably driven to remove myself from that environment. I just was doing anything I could to be better, writing loads of blog posts, creating an email list, doing just everything, YouTube, podcasts, doing 2 podcasts a day, just trying to drive out as much awareness of I'm here, please try and experience working with me as possible. Because I think the problem nowadays is people feel like it's, we're in a saturated industry, and there's, as a result of their saturation mindset, they think that there's no hunger. You need to be hungry to succeed. There's plenty of food on the plate in any industry. You've just got to be hungry enough to get it. And there was a certain video that I played again and again and again and again on YouTube. I still watch it now sometimes, and it's I think it's called The Straightest Line, or The Straightest Road to Success. It's the Gary Vaynerchuk 1 minute 30 video. And all he talks about in that video is that you need to just play to your strengths, play to your strengths, play to your strengths. That's all he keeps talking about. And, basically not give a fuck about what you're weak at, but play to your strengths. And at that point, that's all I did, is I played to the strength that I had really, really good passion for coaching, for bodybuilding. And I knew that regardless of maybe not having I didn't have a crazy physique. I didn't have something where I could post my abs and people be inquire. But I knew if I showed I had passion, I had education, I had purpose, and I had desire to help people, I could get pretty far. So those were my principles. And I said, be that person, be that guy that people are, looking up to and thinking that guy's super passionate about what he does. That kind of brought me on to 2015 onwards, was all about building and growing the online base that I have for my coaching now. And that was all facets: YouTube, podcasting, Instagram. And it wasn't just about numbers, it was about quality, it was about interaction, it was about getting to know people, it was about, from 2015 onwards, going to shows and being there and asking questions and making friends and exposing myself to the industry, like across all levels. If we fast forward now to like 2017, I had a little bit of success in 2015 with competing again. That was when I actually won my first show as a teenager and realized that, oh, okay, maybe I'm like semi-decent at this as an athlete as well. 2017, that was the year I competed as a junior. That was when I definitely realized that I had good potential as a bodybuilder, because I'd put a lot of my time and effort into nurturing my processes in the off season that I took in 2016. It was probably the most like diligent off season that I'd taken, the most smart and the most well thought through off season that I'd taken as an athlete. And also I was getting more comfortable with business. I had a really good daily routine, low stress in my life, amazing. So 2017, I was like, right, junior year of competing, the objective, win a British Junior title. And I said that to myself at the start of that season. That's what I would like to achieve. If I get it done, amazing. If I don't, then at least I've set it as a really high goal. And that year, obviously, I managed to achieve that goal alongside winning multiple regional shows within UK DFBA, MPA, BNBF. I did like all the feds. I set myself as someone that can be a good natural bodybuilder. And that was also the year where, as a virtue of winning the UK FBA finals, I met one of the most influential people in my life, which was Lee and Amy. That was pretty pivotal for me, to be honest, because at that point you win the British title and you get, your trip paid to the US. They literally take people to the US. They pay for your flights, your accommodation. They pay for your entry for the show. All you have to do is get there and pay for your food. And like at that point, I was like, I'd never ever had any opportunity like that in my life. Like back in karting, like if you wanted to go to the world finals, you're like, okay, where's your $8,000? Where's your $9,000? So to like be in an industry and find people like that were willing to give back basically their money to fuel athletes going across was huge. And to the point where I've always felt, even though it was like that year, like 1 year, I've always felt almost like not in debt, but like I always felt like I wanted to give back to them. I remember sending an email that December saying to Lee that like, I had such an amazing trip and I want to like try and do more for him to help him build the federation. And from that email onwards, we've become very close friends. Obviously now we can kind of call ourselves almost like business partners in a way. And he's become one of those people that if I have a problem or if I have something that's bothering me, Lee really is almost like a bit of a father figure in my life. And it kind of also came like, I've never told like Lee this, and I've never really spoken about this on any sort of platform, to be honest. So at the end of 2017, I came back from Boston, obviously spending time with Lee and Amy, and at that point my mum had been dealing with breast cancer that full year. So her diagnosis was like early 2017, and at the end of 2017 I came back. I remember being told by my dad that she'd basically had a stroke and like a seizure, and I got told that she was basically very, very unwell, and her health was deteriorating massively at that point. And like I said, I've never really talked about it because I think, at that stage, like with my mum's health deteriorating and ultimately her passing away in February of the next year, in 2018, I kind of like lost a person in my life that I really resided in, especially from a mental standpoint. Physically, when I was tired and stressed and worn out, I love my dad, but I'd never go to my dad. I always go to my mum. And Lee and Amy for me at that point were people that I then resided in, over future years. There's been many, many moments in my life where I've been upset and struggling and down, and I've gone to them because they've been those kind of people. They've always been like family to me. But yeah, that kind of like struggle of my life where obviously I lost a huge person in my life, and I always look back at that time and think, it was yeah, it was a huge struggle for me to overcome. But at the same time, I wouldn't be the person that I am today without that period in my life. I honestly wouldn't have been as stable mentally as I have been lucky to have been without experiencing what that level of difficulty is like. Because I always think of like, you almost think of like, if it sounds a bit silly in a way, but you can almost like gamify life, right? So like, that level of difficulty and challenge from a stress perspective is so high that nothing else is comparable. So like business stress, life stress, fraud, whatever. Like I've been through so many different things that like, yeah, I get upset about it like anyone normal does, but it's just not even on that level. Like I can't even compare it. So I'm able to still stay very level-headed within those moments. I look back on it and I'm very grateful to have the people that I have. And I do think that, if anyone watching this is going through a particular struggle or difficult time in their life, realize that there will be good times that await you for sure. And equally at the same time, you will build so much more mental resilience and emotional maturity to things that previously you throw your toys out the pram over. Like I said at the very start of this video, I was lucky to have a family that was so supportive of like what I was doing, that at least by that point in my life, my mum definitely knew the direction I was heading in. She knew the success I was going to have. She said that I was going to do everything that I wanted to do in life, and I can quite comfortably say now that I've done that and more. And partly through drive of wanting to prove not only to myself, but almost prove to her that I can do everything that I told her I was going to do. Yeah, that takes me away from that period of my life into like, I guess probably the next touching point is like kind of 2020, because 2020 was definitely a point in my life where a lot changed in my life in 2020. Obviously we had COVID, and COVID actually made me, in a way, realize that there were aspects of my personal life that I wasn't happy with, and a lot of things exposed that. And it wasn't just COVID; it was a lot of different things. And without going into details, a certain relationship at that point ended. And that made me realize that if I was going to head into another relationship with a partner, I needed certain things to be in place. One, with myself, I needed to learn a little bit more about myself, which I did in that period of time. But also I needed the right person. I was at a point with business and with bodybuilding where I cared so much about those that I needed if I was going to have a person in my life, I needed someone that was so aware and so supportive of those objectives in my life. Because a lot of people will know this, but like when your business is your baby and it's your passion, it's like you're gonna start to put that at the top of the tree in a lot of situations where a lot of people don't appreciate that. And so 2020 was the time that I met Loz as well. Like it happened very naturally. We were literally, she was training with Meg, I was training with Cuba. It wasn't like we met on Instagram or anything like that. It was just like things very much fell into place for me to meet Loz, and the timing was in some ways very right. I'd learned what I needed in a relationship if I was going to have one, and I knew that Loz had a lot of very like-minded attributes to ourselves, and a lot of people will probably say that about us, is that we have a lot of like similarities with the way that we treat life and the way that we treat bodybuilding as well. The way that we treat bodybuilding is very similar. Like we're very all in, we're very dedicated, we're very not miss a beat, but that for us is so normal that it doesn't interrupt our life, so and that's arguably a message that people could probably take from this video, is that if you're looking to have someone support your life in some shape or form, maybe it's from you're very business focused or you're very bodybuilding focused, like having something that works in synergy is a game changer. It'll not only be the best relationship that you can have, but it's also something that for me from 2020 to 2024, people could probably look like and to see the rate of progression that I've had, not just as an athlete, But in business, like the rate of progression I've had in business has been, you know, Loz will love this one, but has been like literally a large part down to having Loz in my life. Why? Because when I go to shows, she will likely prep my meals for me and keep me on track as an athlete. When we go to shows, apart from when she's prepping, she'll drive me so I can stay in touch with my clients all the time. She'll keep me on sync with my schedule. Like the other day at the seminar, you know, AJ, like, make sure you eat, make sure you hydrate. It's like someone that cares so much about my business and my process. That is a large part why I'm like, why I'm here right now, why I've got the client base that I have, why I get the results that I get, is because I can literally give 100% effort to everything that I do. And yeah, obviously it goes two ways. You know, when she needs help and she needs support, I'm the first person to be able to help her with that as well. So like I said, it works in synergy. That kind of brings me to pretty much like present day where I'm at right now. Obviously in 2025 there's a lot of things that are going to be new. One is me getting back on stage, which I'm very excited for, and this kind of acts as a nice catch up for people that probably don't know a lot of my background, and I feel like I've just taken a massive trip back in time, some of which emotional. 2025 will be a year where I also start to go down a new avenue in my business and sort of career, so to speak, and that's with show promotion, and that's with the MBW International. To touch on a little bit of the goals that I have with both Team MBM and MBW, which are my two babies, my two businesses. So with Team MBM, to give a little bit of context as to where it's come from and where it is now. So I went fully online with Team MBM in late 2015. In late 2015, I left one-to-one PT with 25 clients consistently, between 25 and 30. From 2021 onwards with Team MBM, I've been lucky enough to be in a position where I work with anywhere between 90 and 110 clients per month. The highest I've been is like 115, and I don't like being in that spot because, you know, to be open and honest, when I'm at anywhere, for me realistically, in triple digits, so like 100 plus clients, which is a lot of check-ins per day and it's a lot of WhatsApp communication, I don't like the way it makes me feel towards the job. I feel like I'm thinking more about just staying on top of the work rather than enjoying the work. And that's something that I definitely learned in 2022 with Team MBM. So my goal with Team MBM is to provide the highest standard I can possibly give to my clients, with expertise, continual knowledge growth, and obviously a high level of service. That's something that I want to sustain for the 80 to 90 clients that I work with. When I get to 90, I don't take on any more. When I drop off a few, I take on a few more clients. And that's kind of the way that I've worked over the last 2 years really. Being honest with you, I have no huge desire to grow Team MBM to earn a certain amount of money. When I was building Team MBM, I was like, would it be nice to earn this amount of money and this amount of money, and you start to put all these figures in your head. And being honest with you, I've achieved all of the objectives that I had financially with that business. If I was to make it more financially beneficial for me, it would probably be taking on another coach. But for myself, Team MBM it's me. It is me. And when I think about getting someone else on board, I think about the fact that, one, it's another person to manage in a very personalized industry with coaching, which is a risk to my standard of results and my packages that I bring to stage for clients. And it's also, I've always thought that if I bring on someone that represents my core values and my dedication level to coaching, they're going to want their own business. They're going to want their own thing. They're not going to want to be Team MBM. They're going to want to be Team whatever, you know? And funnily enough, all of the people, and this is the main take home for me, all of the people that I've ever considered that would work alongside me are all now extremely successful coaches with their own business, and they've got coaches underneath them, or they've built a big brand. All of those people that I've always thought that he would have been a great guy, she would have been a great girl to add onto the team, all got their own businesses. So I was probably somewhat right in my decision making there. MBW. So MBW started in 2022. It initially grew very well to 500 subscribers, members. My objective for MBW is to make it a business that is financially profitable in the future. Right now, it is not something that's profitable to me, but it's very profitable to the community. It gives back, and it's a growing business. So when I think of like a growing business, I think about anything that comes in, goes out, to keep growing it up and getting it bigger and bigger and bigger. So when MBW is sort of self-efficient enough to provide continual value to natural bodybuilding community, the courses are growing, the education is growing, the show is growing, the clothing's growing, it will be probably something that allows me to pull down my coaching numbers in the future. But right now, that's not the goal for the site. So, you know, right now we hover around 700 to 750 members, which I'm really happy with. Don't get me wrong, when I started it, I was like, 1,000 straight away, let's go to 1,000, like it would be great. But I've got to realize that, you know, there's it's a very, being honest with the business side of MBW, it's a very kind of like volatile you know, business model, because with memberships that are $9.99 a month, it's like up and down, up and down, up and down, new, and then like a couple of drop-offs, new, and a couple of drop-offs. So it's like very different to coaching. You know, I might lose a client now and again when it comes to their like an end of a phase, or they've decided to move on, but it's very rare. Like my retention, I've been lucky enough to have like very high. Like for example, I just finished up some check-ins today, and I have like 3 people over 200 weeks that I checked in with today. I have Makey, who's one of my longest standing clients, Sandra, who's one of my longest standing clients, that are both like with me for like over 5 years, you know? So coaching is not like that. Coaching is like, I'm very much about developing such strong relationships with the people that I work with that they don't see a reason to go anywhere else. But with MBW, it's like, it's click of a button and they end a $9.99 contract. So it's a different business model, and I didn't respect that at the start. So at the start, I'd be like seeing members drop off, and I'd be like, it's the end of the world. What am I doing wrong? I need to fix this, you know? So I've got used to the business model, and I pay attention to the long-term growth with that. So that's a bit of a recap of those two businesses. With the show, first show, I honestly just wanted to make a big impact and be a show that people really look towards as like one of those top natural bodybuilding shows that they want to compete at, and build the prestige of the title. So I want people to say in the future, I want to be a champion of the MBW show. You know, I would like that to be huge objectives of people's careers. You know, I want to win the MBW Pro Show. I want to win an MBW amateur title. You know, that would make me so happy to see that kind of response from athletes and from coaches to like push their clients to do it. So, but to do that, we need to build trust, respect, and integrity. And this is not me saying, oh, the other shows have problems, we won't. It's saying that we already get ahead of the problems that other people have faced. For example, I've been at shows at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Why? The show is one day. We go 2 days straight away. We don't even know like how many numbers we're going to get. We have a rough idea from previous UKDFBA shows, and we're grateful to have the relationship that I have with Lee to have his backing, but we ultimately don't know. There is still a UKDFBA British Finals, which people might just do that. We don't know, but we do a 2-day show to provide the highest quality, athlete-driven show that we can possibly do. Number 2, people care so much about media and exposure for athletes. So we provide them with the best exposure they can possibly get, with the best media in terms of video and photo. And we also, we get people to come from Austria because they have the best experience with live stream, with documenting the show and producing ridiculous after movies for the athletes. And they also have the best understanding of lighting, of stage production, of all of the other aspects that make up a high quality event. Music, even little things like the music for the entire show is run by people that truly understand what music fits the category, not just playing the same music repeatedly for the whole show. You know, it's like even these little things, they all add up. So we're trying to basically build a team of almost you could call it like natural bodybuilding show Avengers, people that are like the strongest at their game, to come together for this event. The venue in itself, you walk into the venue and you're like, whoa, this is like a crazy cool space. It's not just an auditorium, it's a space. It's a space where people have held big concerts, boxing matches. It's a huge, super cool environment where as an athlete you will feel like you are competing at a high level, regardless of whether you're a first timer or whether you're an experienced competitor. You'll feel like you're truly competing at a prestigious show, and it can be the first time that we ever run it. This is something that I don't feel like we're going to need to like slowly upgrade it. I feel like we're already going in at a level where people feel like this has been there for a while and it's here to stay. So really, what the NBW show is about is making sure that first show is not just an impact from seeing it online or from a visual standpoint, but it's an impact from the moment that athletes turn up on the Friday for registration to the point where they maybe leave after competing on the Sunday. The whole event will be something that people will look back on in a very positive and excited and pumped fashion for what we're doing for natural bodybuilding. Yeah, we want to build it to the point where we build the stars of the NBW shows and future champions, and that'd be something that just is like a huge personal goal, not even a business goal, but a personal goal. There are so many great people in natural bodybuilding that don't get any exposure for it. It's a large part why I talked about Lee in this video a decent bit and Amy in this video a decent bit, because what people don't understand is like, if they weren't here, or if anyone that runs, Michael Phillips who did the MPA, Vicky McCann and Guy Addison who run the BNBF, if they weren't here, I don't have anything. I don't have a business where I can coach natural athletes because they have no shows. So it's like, if these people aren't here, we don't have our businesses, and people don't give that enough credit. So for me to be able to, I'm still going to coach. My coaching is my passion. I think honestly, I will coach until I'm like 50, 60 years old. Like, I genuinely believe that I will do that because I love it. Whether I'll do it in the numbers and the capacity that I do it with right now, up until then, maybe not. But this for me is the next step in giving back, because if I am able to build something that keeps true natural bodybuilding alive, like with passion and with, my desire to see the sport at a new level, that's going to be something that will last hopefully generations, and give back to coaches, athletes, every sort of like bit of the natural bodybuilding tree that branches off, gives them the roots to grow off, so to speak. That's something that I'm super excited about. I'm super excited to share the journey a little bit more on YouTube with that side of the process, because I'm sure that we'll talk more about that in the upcoming series. And I'm equally excited to get back on stage myself in May and June, and document that side of my process again, not just on NBW. And I think that kind of brings us up to date with pretty much the majority of what I wanted to run through in this specific video. And I just want to finish obviously by saying like thank you to anyone that, first and foremost, like before even watching this video, if you're like a new subscriber to the channel, you're someone that's just like caught onto this video by fact of it being in your feed, like welcome to the channel, and thank you for watching the video. But for the people that have like watched maybe the first few videos that I've ever put out, for friends that have supported my journey as well, for people that have been in my life that support my journey, I massively appreciate every single one of you. So yeah guys, thank you for watching, and I'm sure we will chat very soon.